works from each section, those being the light, dusk and dawn, and the darkness. The first book I'm going to read is called Letters from Eris. My queen, we were right. It was under our noses the whole time. Something lies deep below the moon's surface, and I believe it is more important than we initially believed. It is something we may not be ready for. I have found a pyramid akin to your description. It is what we have been hunting for. The pyramid has reopened a box in my mind, long thought locked, its contents frightening and heartbreaking. It is forcing me to confront memories buried ages ago. People, places, vile creatures, all are rushing to the forefront of my consciousness. If it's affecting me like this, what will it do to our loved ones, those who we have sworn to protect? I vividly remember the stories from that night, the sky burning green, the roar of thunder ripping through the darkness, and the Eater of Hope tearing through our ranks. Crota, the merciless hive prince whose dark campaign to pursue the traveller led to the slaughter of countless worlds, all in the name of his father, Oryx, the Taken King. I'll never forget the Vanguard's failed attempt to reclaim the moon from the hive. The great disaster. We lost thousands, needlessly. I fear we are on the verge of doing so once again. Now the hive are spreading across the moon, perhaps mounting a defensive or some other insidious machination. We must access the inside of the pyramid by whatever means necessary to find what I believe may be the key to our battle with the darkness. It's too critical to allow the hive to interfere. This is our duty. My fate has guided me here. We will set it right. The price will be high, but the alternative is not an option. It will take the collective might of all guardians working together to lead us to a brighter future. Next chapter. Ikora. The nightmares appear to be extracted from our very psyche. Violent manifestations that wreak havoc, tormenting us with our past trauma. They tease us with a life we once knew, prying into our minds and attacking our most vulnerable points. This assault on our emotions is aimed to weaken us and our sense of purpose, but I will not waver. Emotions can be overcome. I don't fully comprehend the power these nightmares wield, or if they can truly be conquered, but I have yet to meet an enemy who could not be. I cannot shake the feeling that we are being toyed with, that these nightmares are a hindrance to our goal. We must not lose sight of what they are guarding. Perhaps they wish to make us question ourselves and our will to live, to overcome. Now I lived in the darkness for years, barely escaping with what was left of my life. The toll it took on me to refortify myself is something I refuse to experience again. If the pyramid is indeed testing us, it will find we are more than up to the challenge. The pyramid has also spawned another entity, one that presents a different kind of danger. It does not attempt to harm me physically. Instead, it seeks to wage psychological warfare, a battlefield I have lived on. The pyramid had the gall to bring Sai Muta before me, devoid of her corporeal form, hoping to shake my resolve. I will admit, seeing this phantom was jarring, but the pyramid underestimates my will. It was almost comforting to see her again. Nothing will break my determination. I can't allow it, not with what's at stake. Should we falter, all our work, along with our goal of an existence without strife, pain, or hardship, will cease to be. No one should have to endure what I've lived through. As long as I am around, no one ever will. We cannot acquiesce. I will show them the meaning of light. Next chapter. My queen. They won't leave me alone. It was only Sai at first. Now Vel Tarlo joins her, back to torture me. anticipate hearing their voices again. The darkness is deceptive and seeks to corrupt from within. It knows just where to strike. Terrible pain has resurfaced from a scar that I assumed had healed. Now something is scratching and clawing its way out. When we went after Crota to seek retribution for the great disaster, we knew there would be risks. We did not know it would be a suicide mission. I'm ashamed to say I never wanted to think about these events again. How can we move on from our past if we continue to live in it? They were the last family I had before my time in the dark. 6 of us went in. Only I made it out. Ariana 3, my leader, our first encounter, consisted of an argument over a piece of music I loathed. Ariana was enamored with its melody and sought to convince me of its merits. Her unequivocal honesty in the face of dissenting opinions led me to pledge my total devotion and trust to her. I would hum the tune quietly to myself in the dark, to stave off the madness that was consuming me. Our Titan Vel was the first to fall. I mourn him to this day, and think of his courage in times of despair. We should all be so valiant in the face of overwhelming odds. Today I will need his example more than ever. Sai's knives were as sharp as her wit. She laughed in the very face of danger. Now the same laugh that I heard countless times, and that once brought me great comfort, rings painfully in my memory, and triggers nothing but anguish. Oh, I wish I could amend that. She deserved more. Poor Omar was skeptical of our chances, yet his bravery endured, even as his light was pulled from him by the hive wizard, the heart of Crota. Few possess the fortitude required to press on when all hope seems lost. He has imbued me with the strength to weather the coming storm. And you know, Toland, the Shattered, the mad warlock who knew more than he let on. I had my doubts about him in the past, but time changes perspectives. I now respect his dedication to learning the ways of the darkness. And surviving despite them, much as I had to. By confronting me with my lost fire team and stirring up memories so painful the nightmares only confirm my earlier assumptions. I feel they are trying to distract us. Remain vigilant, no matter the cost. My queen, Omnigul, the monster Crota's sycophantic zealot, mother to Crota's hellspawn, murderer of my friend Sai. Omnigul wrought terror throughout the stars and brought about the loss of countless lives. She was utterly defeated by a brave fire team of guardians who drowned out her screams with a maelstrom of bullets and vengeance. Now her wedded shriek pierces my ears once again. The pyramid is playing its cards and going all in, as Kate 6 would say. Oddly, I find myself thinking of him more now that he is gone. I suppose I have grown closer to other guardians and the Vanguard than I realized. If the pyramid is dragging the nightmare of Omnigul into the fray, it tells me one thing. We are getting closer. I am aware that these nightmares are not truly what they represent, but the mind can be fooled even momentarily. In those moments lies all the destructive power that darkness hopes to exploit. I fight back, but the nightmares grow stronger. I worry how long I can bear the weight the pyramid places upon me. These memories seek to tear me apart, my queen, and the familiar pang of weariness rears its ugly head. I will do my best, knowing it will not always be enough. For now, I assume the worst is yet to come. My queen, Crota's minions emerge once more. The hidden swarm that previously served Crota has banded together once again, leaderless but not purposeless. The energy emanating from the pyramid has apparently attracted undesirable attention. If I am struggling to understand its potential, I wonder whether the hidden swarm has ever even scratched the surface. Hellmouth, and all the while this force was buried beneath me, hidden by the hive. If only I had known. How long has the hidden swarm been experimenting with the pyramid's power? For all the hive's efforts, they fortunately do not seem to have succeeded in penetrating the pyramid's walls. Now that the pyramid is activated, I sense a certain desperation in the hidden swarm. The hive are frenzied. Their rituals and appearance of Cruta's daughter, Ashladun, suggests that either the hidden swarm is seeking leadership, or it is so malleable that anyone desiring an army might claim them. We cannot underestimate the hidden swarm. I know far too well what kind of damage these hive are capable of. Too many victims have fallen to their bloodlust. I have lost too much. Because of them, I lost my ghost. I lost my eyes. They assumed me beaten, but they were wrong. I used their own dark magic against them, surviving and learning their tricks. I know where they are weak. A place only mentioned in whispers. The Catacombs. It is there that unknown shadows lurk, performing the most depraved rituals imaginable. Should some malignant force rise from the darkness to guide them? I shudder to think what this brood could achieve. This must never be allowed to happen. The hive may have suffered a momentary loss and could attempt retaliation, but now this is our time to strike. No more distractions. We must get inside. Next chapter. Ikora, it's spreading. The nightmares have begun propagating on celestial bodies well beyond the moon. Is the pyramid's power growing, or have we simply overlooked how far its reach extends? Neither answer would provide much comfort. The plague of nightmares continues to grow as the pyramid exerts its influence. We may not be able to defeat the distractions, but Vanguard's support in suppressing this mounting threat could be of great use. We can provide a distraction of our own while I focus my attention where it is most desperately needed, uncovering the secrets inside the pyramid. I sense there could be a great danger lurking in the darkness, and the pyramid may just be our key to stopping it. Every moment that goes by, we become more vulnerable, and our allies further endangered. I fear for my friends. This is the price we must pay, however, if we are to ensure a brighter future for us all. We will have to endure a darker present, but if they are trying to break me, they will have to try harder. My queen. Abomination, the untamed spawn of Crota. That's what we call him. Fogoth was a creature bred for one purpose: destruction. The hidden swarm kept this ogre alive through foul rituals of rebirth, chained up in the summoning pits. Its unnatural existence a reminder of the threat the swarm poses. Yet seeing its visage has sparked an unexpected emotion within me. Pity. I too know the pain of having to lead an existence you no longer want. The monster should have died and been forgotten. Instead it had to live a life of indentured servitude. Sometimes I feel the same. Though my duty is my oath and privilege, I can't help but feel trapped by the endless cycle of the fight. Will it all be worth it in the end? Will I ever know peace? Perhaps the nightmares are weighing on me more than I'd care to admit, as these thoughts flood my mind and cloud my judgments. Even still, I remain steadfast in our mission, my queen. Your endless support drives me, and for that, I am thankful. My queen, loyalty to the highest bidder is no loyalty at all. The fallen mercenary, Tanix the Scarred, has appeared. It is a nightmare. I believe, though it is hard to say with Tanix. He was assumed defeated by Guardians during the Siva conflict, although he has come back from the dead so many times that I feel somewhat uncertain. All I am sure of is that the nightmares are growing stronger. They challenge my fortitude in a way I haven't experienced since my time in the Hellmouth. Tanix has changed in many respects over the years. He has enlisted the technology of the fallen, Vex, and humans to alter himself out of necessity. survivor much like myself. Never in all my years did I think I would waver in my opinion of him, yet here I stand, sympathetic to a being who doesn't understand the meaning of the word. Sometimes I question what kept me in the Hellmouth. Was I truly trapped there, or was I keeping myself there? Was it a self-imposed exile for the disastrous attempt at assassinating Crota? Was I a prisoner of my own making, doing penance for my mistakes? No, this can't be right. Tanix is a lawless murderer with no moral code or ethics. There was that period, I am sure you recall, where it was assumed Gate 6 had slain him, yet he returned, only to bring down Andal Brask in cold blood. Despicable. This is not me. I am no murderer. I fight for something better alongside all the Guardians of Light. This mission becomes more arduous by the day, but I am resolute in my cause. My queen, the Kell of Kells, scold us. A true nightmare if I've ever seen one. I apologize, my queen, if the mention of his name unearths any foul memories. I know the toll it took on the Awoken when he waged his unholy war on the reef, rallying the House of Wolves in an uprising that saw the loss of so many Awoken lives. We mourn them still to this day. Skolas's ambition was nothing if not relentless. In certain regards, I almost respect his sense of duty to his people. He was ruthless in his quest to lead his followers to glory. After his final revolt inside the Prison of Elders, Guardians banded together to thwart him once and for all, until today, when the darkness summoned a nightmare of him. I fear we may someday find ourselves in Skolas's place, shackled and bound, deprived of our friends and followers, yet we cannot abandon hope, no matter how freeing it would be to just give in to the darkness, to give up, to feel no more pain. No. Skolas was grueling to defeat. We must be the same. We too shall adapt and become ruthless, in hopes of staving off the darkness. I feel the same sense of dedication to my people that Skolas felt for his. Death itself will have to claim me to end my campaign. The weight of this mission is not overwhelming, though it feels heavier with each step forward. I will carry on. My queen, the Red War was not so long ago. The nightmare of Gaul is an unwelcome reminder of the slaughter we faced. Many of us are still rebuilding after the atrocities committed by this murderous fiend. He orchestrated one of the greatest tragedies our people have endured when he tried to steal the Traveller for himself and harness its light, destroying our homes and the Tower, massacring thousands of innocents in the process. Gaul's most odious transgression was not his attempted theft of the Traveller, nor his part in the Speaker's death, but his profaned, self-aggrandized fantasy that he would be chosen to receive the Traveller's light. It would amuse me to think this brute, who only excelled at betrayal and subterfuge, would ever be worthy of the Traveller's light, had his misguided campaign not led to so much senseless bloodshed. Light stands for self-sacrifice and devotion. Light is the hope of a peaceful, harmonious world. Gaul only sought power. He would never have been chosen for the light. I often wonder whether I was chosen, or whether I made a choice in my journey through this life. Did fate make me, or did I make my own fate? I cannot say with great certainty one way or the other. I can only assert that I choose what I feel to be right in any given moment, and hope I made the right choice. I was relieved when Gaul was defeated by the might of Guardians and destroyed the Traveller's light. It was reaffirming. I spare no pity for Gaul, as he was a wretched creature who got what he deserved. His rage-fueled quest for power will not prove our greatest test, however. I dread that whatever comes creeping out of the darkness next will dwarf the devastation Gaul brought forth. We must steel ourselves for what lies inside the pyramid. My queen, I find myself unexpectedly empathizing with the Vex Gate Lords. The machine's sole purpose lies in defending their realm a noble and relatable cause. I employ that same sense of duty. It is what drives me in our crusade against the darkness and allows me to persevere, even when I feel pushed past my limits, much as I do now. I will not lie to you, my queen. The very fabric of my mind feels twisted and frayed. I have always sensed something inherently dark in regards to the Vex. Specifics elude me for now, but I believe it warrants further scrutiny. We should survive this ordeal. The ancient protectors of the Black Garden are rumoured to contain code, not coordinates to a place, but potentially a key to time itself. Perhaps we can harness that code and erase the horrors of the past. We could save ourselves from the suffering and pain we are being forced to confront. It sounds weak to hope for something so impossible, but trying to reconcile the distress has caused a lesion that I fear will never heal. The past has come back to torment me. For those I love, I will make sacrifices, but will there be anything left of me afterward? My queen, I have now seen Fickrell, the fanatic, the scorned baron, brainwashed into subjugation by your brother, a puppet in Uldren's scheme to open a gateway to the dreaming city. The appearance of this nightmare begs even bigger questions. Why him? What is the pyramid implying? I often ruminate on the fallen. They are a fascinating people, a once great society now reduced to wasted potential, destroyed by the darkness. Who can say what they might have achieved before their downward spiral into scavenging and piracy? Is this to be my legacy too? Am I fated to feel a pawn in the whims of the darkness? If that is what the nightmare of Fickrell represents, what choice am I left with? I have already been stripped of my light. It would be easy for the darkness to take me if I let it. Do I dare? If we lose this coming battle, we are surely we are to suffer the same fate as the fallen, being cast aside, aimless and gagging on our own lost hopes and ideals. It is growing harder to find the light. My queen, the worst is upon us, I am afraid. Struggling to control my emotions, my queen, but it is not fear that provokes me. Uncontrollable rage fills me as the nightmare of Crota returns to taunt me for my failures once again. I am always feeling. The countless lives taken during the great disaster, my fire team, and my own lost humanity, they have all come rushing back. I am trying in vain to stop a waterfall with a tree branch. I am overwhelmed. I feel again. The Eater of Hope laid waste to world after world in his pursuit of the traveller. My friends, his sword stole their light. Their light. There was never a path of forgiveness with Crota. He had to be eradicated. The peace I felt learning of his demise at the hands of Guardians was immeasurable. I took pleasure in his death. I relished it. The darkness will win. I can sense it already. I swore I would go on. I could no longer swear this. Always feeling. Relieve me. The final chapter. Undelivered. Deleted. My queen. I am at a loss. Never before have I felt so hopeless, so adrift, so tempted. Forgive me for my words, but I understand the allure of the darkness. It is quite a powerful sensation to feel so free of care. My fractured mind thrills at the prospect of recklessly abandoning hope. I cannot say I didn't want it to take me. I was weak. I see this now. I may have faltered, but I endure. Do not mistake my weakness for betrayal. There are more pressing concerns. Delivered, reconstructed. It is coming, my queen. It is coming for us. We have been manipulated. We are right where it wants us. The darkness orchestrated its plan magnificently. The nightmares were so impeccably calculated to draw us in, make us vulnerable, and to leave us exposed. The darkness plans to use us. We are to do its bidding. I don't know how to stop it. I I detect no fear on the part of our nemesis. We aren't even a concern. We pose no threat. The darkness needs a reason to fear our light, and I intend to provide it. I have been inside. I have nothing but beautiful and violent words for my report. I will meet you at your throne. Delivered. Ikora, after all that has transpired, I must share my findings with you, for you have remained steadfast and supportive of me where others have lacked faith. Having faced so many of the demons that haunted me, I finally feel a sense of closure on the horizon. Pain is something that never truly goes away. It is something you live with, hoping it makes you stronger as you learn to cope. You cannot bury it, nor hide from it. There is power in acknowledging it. This is how we will win. Despair not. Our purpose is good and true. I will not be weighed down in the dark by my past, my mistakes, or my trauma. Instead, I will use them, and they will lift me up into the light. That was the first story, Letters from Eris, which I believe details Eris's experience. Eris, Morn, the hunter, her experience on the moon as she was conducting, I suppose, reconnaissance on the pyramid ships. The second story I wish to read is one called A Man with No Name, which I believe is about the Drifter. For the breadth of my formative years, I had one goal: find my, well, we all have our own word for them, my chosen, and every moment thereafter was dedicated to keeping him alive, whether he liked it or not. There were turbulent times before the last city, before humanity found hope for the future. I was prepared to kill for it, die for it. A ghost of the Dark Age. He opened his eyes in the night air and took an even breath. He wasn't sure how long he'd been asleep, but his immediate instinct was to run. He froze. The voice wasn't his. You have to run. The man stood up in the evening light. He looked down at himself and saw that someone had dressed him for his own funeral. He didn't laugh, but he thought it was funny. The voice continued. Can you hear me? Risen fight for territory in these highlands. We have to move. For the first time, he noticed a small drone buzzing in the air around him, a blazing eye at its center, glowing like a blue sun. It jerked its frame to the left, indicating the light of a faraway settlement. Head west. I have friends there. They will help us. The man stared at the drone, frowned, and ran in the opposite direction. What? Hey! The voice cried out behind him. He fled into darkness. Tall grass on either side of him, flying past. The only thing he could hear was his own breathing and the loud crush of the vegetation he trampled. He was surprised at how fast he was moving. The voice called to him again, far behind him. He heard the roar of the machine before he saw it, and he didn't feel a thing as it exploded out of the tall grass to the right and landed on him, crushing him beneath its bulk. He opened his eyes in the night air and took an even breath. You died, the drone explained, hovering over him. It was smeared with a dark, filmy paste. I brought you back. He stood up and looked down at himself. Same clothes, nothing hurt. The hulking wreck of the machine that had killed him sat in pieces a few meters away, inside a dark, sooty crater. The body of an armored man lay sprawled over the smouldering open-air cockpit, his helmet punctured by a small hole about the size of the drone. Are you ready to listen? Let me take you to my friends, it said. This region is full of raiders like this man, led by Risen like you. You've got a lot of catching up to do. What the hell are you? The man spoke for the first time. I'm your ghost. My only purpose is to support you, the drone replied. You work for me. In her manner of speaking, yes. Is this the afterlife? In a manner of speaking, the drone said, nodding at the western lights once more. Can we go? Not that way. The man headed in the opposite direction. The drone watched him trample the high grass and disappear. It stared up at the massive disfigured orb that dominated the sky, then made a small adjustment to the orbit pattern of its modular armor. It hurried after the man. He had been reduced to crawling, his ghost cut serenely through the air above him. What the hell is wrong with me? He demanded off the ground. You're dying from starvation, the ghost said flatly. I don't believe you, he sneered as he dragged himself over some rocks. I could fix you, Ghost said. I don't need you, he said. I got this. You're not going to pick an aim, Ghost asked. Everybody picks an aim. You talk too much. Some people pick names for their ghosts too. What should I call you if you don't want a name? He had passed out. The sun beat down directly overhead, a searing marble in the sky. He died a day later after a scorpion stung his prone body. Ghost allowed it. A complete restart would be less complicated. He opened his eyes and took an even breath. What shall I call you? Ghost asked. He looked at it as if considering, then down at his hands. I'm still hungry. The light is no gift. It takes everything from you. Makes you forget, not just your memories, but how to live. A dark age drifter. Eden received its first visitors in years. Jermaine watched the armoured men and women climb down from their silver transports. They were risen, being said to be unkillable, and they fought against each other in a war without end, somewhere beyond Eden's borders. This particular group, the Iron Lords, represented new ideology. They claimed they fought to put an end to the fighting. Led by a man named Dryden, they had paid each family in Eton several months' worth of supplies and rations to stay the week. They planned to stage an ambush on another of their kind, known only as the Red Man. 2 weeks ago, survival was in doubt. Now, because of the generosity of the Iron Lords, their little town would make it through the winter. Jermaine's friend Judson emerged from the neighbouring supply shed and stuck a single finger in the air as the riders strode up. Jermaine chuckled and shook his head, but said nothing. How you living? Judson greeted the risen, holding his finger high. Settle down, Judson, Jermaine called out. Shut your hole, Jermaine, Judson returned, hands still in the air. Your name is stupid, and you're stupid too. Jermaine shook his head and grinned ruefully. Judson had warred the town against the arrangement, shouting to everyone who would listen that he'd take care of food, that the iron freaks would only bring trouble. He was a very good huntsman, possibly the best Eden had ever seen, and somehow produced deer, duck, and bull from the decimated hills. But even Judson had come up short for months. The war beyond Eden had intensified. The adults went out hungry so the children could eat. It wasn't a sustainable position. We'll be out of your way soon, said one of the Iron Lords, who nodded at Judson as he passed by. Her voice was as metallic and cold as her helmet. Judson spat. his eyes off them as they walked the length of the town to secure hidden positions around its perimeter. Sir, this is awful, a dark-aged drifter. Yu was 9 cycles old and visited often. She and her family lived next to Judson, and sometimes they sent her to Jermaine when their boisterous neighbour was too belligerent. As he was today, Jermaine didn't mind. Judson doesn't think it was a good idea to let the Iron people stay with us, she was saying. She paced slowly back and forth between the length of the shack, stepping carefully over the game of cards Jermaine had laid out on the bare dirt floor. I know, but Judson says a lot of things, and sometimes you gotta be decisive. You see how much food they gave us, Jermaine said, placing a card down. A lamp flickered nearby, next to the largest pile of ration boxes the shack had ever held. Judson knows how to use guns. I've seen him. Maybe he can. No, he can't. Those things out there, you can't kill. Get that out of your mind right now. You kept pacing, frowning slightly as she considered it. More food is nice, but Judson thinks they're going to get us dead. I think he might run away, she said. He laid another card down. Appreciate what you get. Your parents were skipping dinner so you could have yours. The Risen solved that for us for a little while. We have to let them stay. She stopped pacing to consider it and looked up at the sheet metal ceiling. I don't want to die. You won't, Jermaine said. Why don't you go see what your parents are up to? I'm a little beat. Okay, she said, shrugging. She left. Jermaine opened a small box of water from the pile of ration packs and poured a tinful. You hadn't noticed because it was difficult to see in the flickering lamplight, but his hand shook. Judson's breath steamed in the night air as he shut the gate that bordered the town as quietly as he could. Shivering would mean shaking the rickety thing and waking up Yu's family, so he kept the handle gripped tight as he pushed it back into place. He now stood on the pass out of Eden Valley. As he turned around, he walked right into Jermaine. Didn't see you there, brother, Judson growled low, stopping just short of throwing an elbow into his neighbour's throat. He backed up a step, just one. Where are you running to this late? Jermaine asked. Brother. What are you, dense? Away from this before the shooting starts. We gotta trust this Lord Dryden. We gotta trust this Lord Dryden knows what he's doing, Jermaine said. Judson shook his head. You and all the deal makers are gonna get this town dead. These guys are worse than the stories. You know why I feel about Risen, but they saved us this week. Judson sneered. No one ever believes it because Risen look like you and me, but they'll kill you without meaning to, naturally as breathing. They can't help it. They're looking to jump one man, just one. We gotta see this through. Even the Risen can't contain a fight at that scale. You gonna move, or do I move you? Jermaine stepped to the side. I'm not the law, but where are you gonna go? There's nothing but war land out there, and their prey is coming. I'm a tracker. Kept this town fed for years before you got here. I'll be fine. And that other Risen won't care about one man passing through. I got nothing to hide. Just need to get away. If you all want to play bait for the warring dead, have a nice life. Jermaine chuckled. What's funny? Judson sneered in that low voice again. I don't know how you do it. I almost admire you. How's that? You've got no fear. Have a nice life, brother. See you when I see you. Jermaine walked back to the gate. Who I gave you a name. Your ghost made a fatal error. Couldn't catch it, but I confirmed it on tracker. The hell is this? You think I'm one of you? Brother, you got another thing coming. Why is it that I find one man all the way out here then? No food or water for miles. I manage. I have ways to make you tell us what we know. The warlord campaign in this region never reached into the southern valley. Are there any settlements you know of nearby? Anything tucked away in the valley or inside the mountain range? You could tell me, or I could start cutting. Might be you missed something. You're coming with me. I plan to scout the valley myself, but now I think I'll bring some friends. Jermaine's hands shook when the warlords, risen who conquered the land they found, brought Judson back to Eden during midday a week later. Half the town came out to see them. One of the men wore red armour that fit the description of the warlord that Dryden and his lords were waiting for. They say that one risen, reasonably armed, can annihilate an army. Two risen, assuming adequate cover for ghost support, can fight infinite armies indefinitely. 6 warlords dismounted their machines in a line at the centre of town, weapons drawn. They dropped Judson on his knees in front of them, no restraints. He looked unhurt. Does anyone want to claim this runt? Asked the red man. We will, Jermaine said. People groaned. You tried to run to Judson, but her parents held her back. A question first, said the red man. Where are the Iron Lords? We saw one of their ghosts. One of these. He tapped the bladed carapace of his own drone companion as it floated past him, its eye fixed on the townspeople. They like to meddle. Maybe they helped you, brought you some food. It would explain how you survived out here in this wasteland. But I guarantee you their motivations are not in your best interest. The red man paused, scanned the crowd as his ghost orbited above him. The Iron Lords are trying to disrupt the established order, and we're here to liberate you from them. You're under our care now. So, where are they? Jermaine shut his eyes a long moment. When no one else spoke, he decided he would. You're right. They're here, but they're long gone. We paid them for supplies and they moved on a week ago. Did they? The red man raised his hand cannon and shot Yu's father in the head. The entire crowd flinched and huddled together as the man fell backward. Yu's mother cried out in fury, but held her child tight. Hand to my heart, Jermaine said, holding his breath as he waited for the hidden Iron Lords to make a move. The red man held his gun in the air, watching the townspeople intently. The other warlords scanned the horizon, gleaming weapons at the ready. Judson took the pregnant pause as an opportunity to pull a fallen shock blade from one of the warlord machines. He gave a triumphant yell and decapitated the armoured risen closest to him. As the body fell, he jabbed the length of the blade through the red man's back. A third warlord pulled the glaive out of Judson's hands and stabbed him in the side with the gauntlet blade, then hurled him backwards over the machines. All hell broke loose around Jermaine as the Iron Lords suddenly opened fire from their positions in the surrounding hills. The townspeople scattered as the fallen warlords rose in scintillating pillars of light, the weapons in their hands roaring to life and spitting tracers. The ghost watched from high above the chaos over the ages. It had gotten very good at hiding. It had gotten very good at all the peculiar things its chosen had asked it to learn. Down below, gunfire and explosions of light tore through the collection of huts and shacks. The town people fled for their lives in the midst of fire and otherworldly flame as the Iron Lords finally abandoned their sniper positions in the hills to close in on the warlords at the town centre. Through it all, the ghost saw one of the men emerge out of the discharge of an errant explosive device, cradling the body of a child. relative safety behind one of the shacks and knelt down, holding an ear to the child's face. She was trying to speak. One of the armoured riders in the town square raised a heavy machine gun in one hand and raked the length of Eden with golden tracers. The ghost lost visibility on the townspeople as the hail of machine gun fire filled its vantage point with a rolling cloud of dirt and dust. The annihilating, scent-shattering explosions came soon after, and the ghost increased its elevation. It waited until long after the battle had died out, and the surviving risen had all left, before lowering itself back to earth. It wasn't even sure which side had won. It didn't matter. The day had turned to dusk. The man opened his eyes and took an even breath. Almost nothing was where he remembered it. Eden was gone, blasted and paved. Mild climate was the only reason the shacks and hut that made up most of the town remained standing. But the storm of light versus light had left scorched earth and shadows behind, and the bones of the dead. It was a blood-red dusk. Ghost hovered above him. The man looked down at his hands. He tried to chuckle, but coughed instead. "Are you all right?" Ghost asked. He stood up, straighter than he had in a long time. Easier to seem like people when you slouch. "Jermaine?" Ghost asked. "That's not my name." "You let them call you that." The man turned to look at his ghost. "It's not my name." "One of the warlords mentioned seeing a lone ghost. Did you get sloppy?" Ghost nodded. "I'm sorry, I was scouting a new livestock route for you and I got carried away." "I don't ask for much," said the man, shaking his head. "Shovel, get me one." Ghost scanned the debris and ash to find a charred spade, lifting it with a lasso of light. The man slowly gathered all the bones he could find and began to dig. "The child, you," Ghost continued. "Stop talking," he replied. "What did she tell you? You were speaking to her at the end." He didn't respond. It would be lifetimes before he told Ghost the answer, but he would remember. "You could have helped her." The shovel hit the dirt harder. "I told you to shut up. You could have saved them all." The man had nothing to say. He must have been making more noise than he thought, because just as he finished digging a grave big enough for the bones, a voice called out. He dropped the shovel, stared across the vacant town square at the smouldering ruin of the Diaz barn. Eden was dead. No point in keeping his secret any longer. He crossed the distance at a speed and ease that would have shocked his neighbours and rounded a corner to find Judson on the ground, leaning against the barn door. There was a cannon in Judson's hand, and his eyes opened wide when he recognised the man and his ghost. Judson lifted the gun with a shaking fist. His other hand clutched a dark stain in his side. "He's lost a lot of blood," Ghost said, its light spilling across the scene. "You were one of them all along," Judson sneered. The man chuckled. "All my lives, brother. You got us killed, you son of a..." The man kicked the firearm out of Judson's hand with no urgency at all. He knelt down to point a finger. No, that one's on you. Those warlords caught you. What else were you gonna do? I wanted to stop you from leaving, but I didn't think I had the right." Judson reached out to grab his throat. The man caught his hand in a vice grip instead, a crushing handshake. Judson frowned and struggled, but he was exhausted, dying, and the man had strength that belied his frame. The man lifted his other hand, smouldering from a solar glow, and held it against Judson's wound. His former friend managed a high-pitched wail, but couldn't break the man's grip, though he tried and tried. The man nodded at Judson, addressing his ghost. Do you see how he never gives up? Because he knows this one life is all he has. No fear. Those risen out there. The man finished cauterizing the wound and used his suddenly cool hand to wave indiscriminately into the darkening night. They'd be long dead if they were him. All they know is war. This man survives. Judson made a gurgling sound. He had stopped struggling, but the man kept a grip on his hand. You wanted me to save him. Even if this works, he can never show me how to live. Not like he lives, and that's on you. Ghost watched, but made minute adjustments to its orbiting armor and sent light-based scans cascading across the ruins of the town. If there were lingering warlords or iron lords nearby, they would have to run. The man stood up. Judson was dead. Maybe you should have told him you were bringing livestock in from 100 leagues away and releasing them for him to catch, Ghost said. I mean, you did see how happy he was, how they all were. They got to eat, the man replied. Give someone something to chase and you give them purpose. You're pathetic. This is what you aspire to be, a perennial liar who plays house with refugees. These people are dead because of us. I lived here as one of them. You could be so much more. Let me show you how powerful your light can become. The man walked past his ghost and brought Judson's corpse to the center of town. As he began digging again, he noticed the bloated spherical husk that dominated the sky. It had been out of his life for a while, but it seemed a lot closer to Earth tonight. He raised a hand to salute it with a single finger, as Ghost looked on. How you livin', he said, and gave a smile to the heavens that ended at his eyes. I never forgive, and I never forget. I live a hard life, sister. A dark-aged drifter. Wu Ming's bar wasn't always bustling, but it was this afternoon. Wu served anyone who could pay, but his clientele were often risen, not because he provided a menu particularly suited to them, but because he had built his bar at the foot of a mountain called Fellwinter Peak. Fellwinter was a former lord, the only one, it was said, to hold an entire mountain all by himself. He now rode with the Iron Lords, and Fellwinter Peak was staunchly the territory of the Iron Wolves. They had never given Wu permission to build the bar. He had never asked. Almost to a person, the patrons tonight were without ghosts. High winds and inhospitable cold meant that those without ghosts rarely visited, but tonight word had reached the general population that warlords were back in the region. No shots had been fired, not yet, but it was enough to get every poor, lightless wretch from miles around into Wu's bar, where chances were an Iron Lord or lady might be having a drink. Wu Ming didn't mind. The door swung open once again, and a trio of armored figures marched in from the cold. Welcome to the end of the world, greeted the serving frame. The warlord shouldered past the 5530 and headed straight for Wu Ming at the counter. What can I get you? Wu asked, giving a smile that ended at his eyes. The leading warlord, a hulking man with shoulder guards larger than his brain, grunted. Food. Everything you have. Wu raised an eyebrow. Sure, that'll be well. A lot of glimmer. You don't understand, the giant man said, grabbing Wu by the lapels of his storm coat. Give us everything you have in the back, or we'll gut you and eat you alive. Hey, Satan, a woman's voice said. Pick on someone your own size. All eyes turned to a helmeted figure standing a few feet behind Satan. She only came up to the giant man's sternum. Lady Aphrodite, Satan muttered. Wu Ming's gaze went from the Iron Lady to the three warlords positioned around the bar amongst his lightless patrons. He cursed under his breath and raced to duck. Wu Ming looked on as the warlord surrounded the lone Iron Lady. End of the world is wolves' territory, Everty was saying, and so is the entirety of Felwinter Peak. That changes tonight. A crescent of light arced between the warlord's open hands. I have an army of raiders and a fire team of Risen waiting on my command. Felwinter's lost his mind, siding with you, Lord. Underneath the helm, Sighton's eyes flickered from the Iron Lady to his warlord ally positioned behind her. The flanking warlord raised a massive hand cannon and thundered a bullet directly into Sighton's chest as Everty dropped to a knee. She swung her cannon to her right side with her left fist and let loose with a roaring double tap behind her, shattering the rear warlord's head. Wu Ming saw that she hadn't so much as looked. The third warlord's submachine gun fired a spray of bullets that hammered the floor as Everty rolled. Wu cursed inwardly as wood splinters went flying all over the room. People screamed. But it was already over. The third warlord crumpled. Everty's solar knife had divided his head. Hold! The lady barked, firing her cannon into the ceiling as three ghosts materialized above their charges. Bits of wood fell on her shoulder. Wu Ming cursed audibly this time. You know who I am, she shouted at the room. At this distance, I could shoot all of you out of the air swifter than you could ever bring your Arisen back. The travelers' children froze, their shells spinning aggressively in the air like metallic bees. You're free to go, she told them, but your Risen stay with me. Follow the Iron Decree, and you'll get them back in time. The ghosts looked at one another. Tell the warlords, she sneered. Felwinter Peak belongs to the wolves. The ghosts left the way their owners came. The bar patrons began murmuring. Everett's ghost, always a quick thinker, started playing music. Lady Scorry singing an old hymn. The patrons backed away from the three warlord bodies, began chattering amongst themselves. The din of conversation gradually filled the room and built to a dull roar. The music helped. Is this why you asked me here? Everett said, holstering her weapon. You said you had some business that paid. I did. You just finished it, he responded, reaching out with a fistful of glimmer. The Iron Lady stared down at it, gawking beneath her helmet. Who the hell pays you? I have means, Wu Ming said, chuckling. Stick with me, sister. I'll make you rich, I promise. She eagerly took the sapphire cubes out of his hand. Glimmer represented pure material potential. You didn't bring Felwinter, Wu said. She eyed him. I told you he never comes down from the peak unless it's official Iron Lord business. What do you need from him? Hey, what are you doing later? Wu asked suddenly. Hunting Fallen. They're becoming a problem at Boyle Pass. We'll be at it till dusk, Everett said, lifting the helmet just above her mouth to grab a drink from behind the counter and swallow an entire mug of the malt Wu served. She belched and asked, Care to join us? Her smile just beneath the helm was all teeth. Nah, Wu chuckled. Nah, a mere mortal at a Risen fight. I just get in the way. He thought for a second. Would you like to dance before you go? Nah, she said, imitating his tone. The helm came down. He cocked his head over the music, then leaned in to ask, Wait, what did you think I said? Would you like to dance before you go? She repeated. I would love to, he said, stepping forward, arms wide. She sidestepped him and kicked his leg out from under him. He went tumbling to the ground and someone spilled their drink on him. I had to try, he called from the floor, watching her go. The plume of her helmet rose above the crowd and was already halfway out the door. Take the bodies, he yelled, still on the ground. It took him 3 hours to climb the peak that night. He was shivering in his long coat, and if not for his ghost, he would have succumbed to the cold long ago. Ghost was hidden, of course. The massive castle doors were already open when he arrived at the top. An Exo, eyes glowing in its sleek black skull, stood just beyond them. It released whatever weapon it was reaching for inside its greatcoat when Wu Ming approached with his hands held high. I come in peace, brother. It wasn't much warmer inside, though Felwinter's ghost had lit the fireplace for Wu. He sat across from the former warlord, both of them in massive Gothic chairs. Who are you? Felwinter spoke first. Your neighbour. I live downstairs, been trying to get your attentions for a month. Wu Ming grinned. What do you want? We thought about it. I heard you kill. A necessity of life in this post-collapse existence. No, I'm talking risen. Final deaths. It's gotten real taboo recently. You Iron Lords are changing things. Who are you? I don't believe you've been honest with me. Felwinter's voice echoed through the chamber. Wu Ming leaned back and rubbed his temples. His hands shook. Felwinter stared unblinking. Wu had the feeling the Exo would sit frozen in time until he said something. Ghost. Wu Ming beckoned. His only friend in the world materialized out of the air. Is that supposed to impress me? Felwinter asked without a shred of irony. How else could you have survived the climb? Wu coughed. Ghost shook his head at him. Let me ask again then, Wu Ming said, straightening to his full posture in the stupid chair. Will you break the Iron Decree? Will you kill? For real? As a warlord, I did many things I'm not proud of. Under the Iron Lords, I adhere to strict rules of engagement, Felwinter said. His voice sounded hollow inside his armored skin. Ghosts are not valid targets. I heard you care very much about right and wrong, and the delivery of justice to those who deserve it. Felwinter's eyes glowed brighter. I can't think of a more human act, he said after a moment's pause. I don't know that anyone has a right to that, but I believe in revenge with all my heart, and I have a request, knowing that you do what you do. Felwinter tapped his chin. What are you asking me? Wu Ming told him a story about a long-forgotten town far away called Eton. Early in the Age of Iron Lords, a lord called Dryden had brought food for the town's starving people, but in return asked to use them as bait to bring a local warlord into position for an ambush. This, we had learned, went against the code set out by Lord Radagast, the founder of the Order. Dryden had broken the rule involving lightless individuals in Iron Lord business, because it was those people that Lords had unified to protect. The town had agreed, of course. What choice did it have? But the ambush had gone horribly wrong. The warlord target had brought a whole fire team to the fight. Eton's erasure was utter and complete. Though Wu later learned that Dryden won the battle, he lost every lord under his command, ghosts and all, and he committed the additional sin of inflicting final deaths on the warlords he defeated. In an act of bloodlust and rage, in the intervening years, Wu had learned that Dryden kept this under wraps, and that he and his ghost were now among the most decorated of lords, next to the likes of rising champions like Lord Saladin and Lady Aphrodite themselves. Felwinter sat frozen in his chair. It was difficult to tell if he had registered any of what Wu Ming had said. How do I know you're not lying? Lying, the hollow voice asked finally. I have live recordings, Wu replied. His ghost transmitted a data stream to Felwinter's ghost, who nodded. Eton, who were those people to you? Nothing. Just ghosts. You want revenge for people you care nothing about. Is the dark horse of iron for hire? Felwinter stood and politely motioned for Wu Ming to take his leave. Wu sighed, shrugged, and left the chamber. He had a long climb ahead of him. The Exo parted his coat and drew a long bronze shotgun from his side. What do you think? His ghost asked. Call Lord Dryden. Prepare This took me a lot longer than I had anticipated. I've been recording for over an hour. So, I know I said I was going to read 6 books, 2 in each section. However, that's definitely going to be way too long. So, I will read the lore from one of my favorite exotics, Astrocyte Verse, as a conclusion. The idiocosm contained within this helm transforms the wearer's head from flesh and or exoneurons to the pure, raw stuff of thought. Ghost, record this. Trial 1. I am now putting on the Astrocyte Verse on my ending. Beginning of all endings. Dying into infinite composite. All nothings begin there when. Fear is very small, and it is every why, and it is not fear, it is a brutal spark, a nerve ending straining under weight. Multi-mere iteration could not foresee, even though it is just that, because there is no other. A causal's wickering away become jagged umami zeros. Awe yourself towards reddening shift, for we Ghost note, key of E flat minor. Silence lasting 4.22 minutes. Good work, ghosts. Good work, ghost. Now let's go again. Trial 93. I am now putting the Astrocyte Verse on my head. That concludes my reading of some of the Destiny lore. I tried whispering this time to see if it's any better. I think I prefer soft speaking, but I could try this again if it goes well. Thanks for watching.